Hey, Spring Boot 4 got released, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can update your Spring Boot 3.x application to Spring Boot 4. I'm going to take a simple Spring Boot application which is using Spring MVC, Spring Monolith, and Spring Data JPA, Spring Security, and things like that. And obviously I cannot cover everything about the migration, but these are the few technologies that we commonly use. So I guess this video is going to be helpful. So let's get started. Here I have a Spring Boot 3.5.6 application, and as I said, I am using Spring Monolith, Spring Security, Spring Data JPA, Flyway, etc. And we are going to migrate to Spring Boot 4. But what are the major changes in Spring Boot 4? Along with the new features added, there is one big change. That is, for example, here if you take a look at so right now I selected 3.5.8, and if you explore here you can see the starters like Spring Starter Data JPA and Starter Web and Flyway Core dependencies added. So these are all the things. And then when it comes to testing, there is one Spring Boot Starter test. So existing Spring Boot 3.x versions have one big auto configure module which contains the auto configurations for everything Spring Boot supports. But that is one, it is a big monolith module which contains auto configurations for everything. So one of the big change in Spring Boot 4 is they split this one monolithic module of auto configuration into multiple modules focusing on specific functionality. So let's close this and choose 4.00, and if you explore, now you can see the difference here. One is earlier for Flyway, it just added Flyway core dependency, but now it changed to Spring Boot Starter Flyway. Along with it, earlier we have a Spring Boot Starter Web. Now, because we are going to use Spring MVC, it changed to Spring Web MVC module. And another major change is here in testing. If you take a look at this, so earlier we have one Spring Boot starter test. Now you can see test modules for every single starter we selected. So here data JPA test, Flyway test, OAuth resource server test, security test, so time lift test, validation test. So you get the point, right? So they not only split that one big monolithic auto configuration module into multiple feature specific modules, and also all the test modules also got split. So this is one big change. Now we need to migrate our application to Spring Boot 4. So we need to make these changes as well. Okay. So how about doing it in some automated way? So here, if you already know about the Open Rewrite, this is one very good library where you can use to migrate to newer versions. It not only simply update the dependencies, sometimes it can also help you to rewrite the code that is based on the changes for newer versions. I try to use this, but let's see if it works. Obviously it is not working for me, but let's try and see. Here I will go and configure the plugin. So here I'm going to add this rewrite Maven plugin. Similarly, if you are using Gradle, you can configure the Gradle plugin, and we are using this upgrade Spring Boot 4.0 version. And what does it say? Once you configure that, run this mvn rewrite :run goal. So let's go and run this. So it's going to take a look at your current project and then try to do its best to migrate to Spring Boot 4. But for me, it did not work properly. But let's see what exactly it does here. Okay, so you can not just one recipe, you can specify multiple recipes. For example, if you have Spring JUnit 4 base test, you want to migrate it to JUnit 5 or JUnit 6, you can also add those recipes here and it will do all those migrations. So the goal has run, and if you take a look at the diffs, let's see. Funnily, I asked it to migrate to 4, but it upgraded from Spring Boot 3.5.6 to 3.5.8, not 4.0, not expected. and it updated OpenAPI dependency to 14 newer version. Good. And also it updated test container dependencies in the newer versions. The coordinates of the test container libraries got changed. Earlier it was simply JUnit Jupyter. Now we need to prefix with the test containers hyphen for PostgreSQL dependency as well, and also for RabbitMQ. It changed, and that's it. It did not change test starters or main dependencies at all. And also it changed the object mapper to tools.jackson, but uh, it's not correct. There is a newer thing called JSON mapper. Instead of object mapper, we should be using JSON mapper. Again, this is not completely fine. And it changed the dependencies using the proper imports. This is fine. But overall, the whole point of this migration is to migrate to Spring Boot 4, but it failed, unfortunately. So we are going to do it in our way, manual way. So this is an example where we can say still we need developers who know what they are doing. Some people may say we don't need developers anymore. We have AI and there is a library for everything. But this is a classic scenario where sometimes things doesn't work and you need people who knows how to do stuff. So let's do it in our own way, doing this migration and see whether we can pull it off or not. Let's migrate to 4.0.0. So here I will update to 4.0 as I have shown on start.spring.io. We need to change the dependencies. So let's go to our code, and first thing is of course you can use a lower version also, but I would prefer to use Java 25. And earlier we have seen there is a newer version here. In fact, I checked and there is even the 3.0.0 version which is compatible with Spring Boot 4 for OpenAPI Swagger documentation. And also for Modulith, if you go back and here, if you check Modulith version 2.0 got released. So let's upgrade it to 2.0. And okay, let's leave the rest of the things. And now coming to the dependencies. As I said earlier, there is one web, and if we are using Webflux, of course you should use Webflux. Now we are using Web MVC, so we should use Web MVC. Validation is okay, actuator, and these are data JPA. Okay, so we have seen this got changed to Spring Boot starter. Now we need to take this and replace the flyway core dependency to Spring Boot starter flyway. Okay, so that is it. And database PostgreSQL, security, what, monolith dependencies. So these are all fine, and timely. This is also fine. Now coming to the test dependency, this is one big thing that got changed. As I have already mentioned, the earlier this is kind of a monolithic module which contains the testing code for all the modules, but now this got split into specific starters, so we need to change that. So instead of me typing all that, I have copied this. So we are using Web MVC, so there is a Web MVC test, validation test, data JPA test, flyway test, so all the modules. So I am going to copy these and replace these two with all these modules. Okay, so basically you can get these dependencies if you select Spring Boot 4, and based on all these starters you can explore and see all these dependencies right here. Okay, you can copy them. And then the next interesting thing is Spring Boot test container support is there, and we have already added the AMKP test, so I'm going to remove this. And one another change that is for test containers is earlier the artifact IDs are not prefixed with test containers hyphen, but in test containers 2.x this is a change you need to do. So I'm going to copy this for PostgreSQL, for RabbitMQ as well. Even you can see the same change here as well. As you can see, there is a test containers hyphen dependence prefix to these test container dependencies. Okay, so that's about it. So another thing I noticed is earlier Spring Boot 3.x provides dependency management for rest assured, but now it is removed from Spring. So we need to explicitly specify the version here. For now, let's go ahead and specify OK 556 and let's refresh. Okay, now that we have the dependencies updated, now there are some issues. Now let's go ahead and let's change it to 25 and set the project to 25. Okay. Now if I build this, so here is another thing. It is not simply updating the dependencies. There are some minor changes in the packaging structure as well. So in this case, earlier I have this flyway migration strategy being configured so that if I'm running with a local profile and I'm enabling this clean feature, by default it is disabled. Now you cannot do this through properties. So I am configuring this bean, and as you can see, this class is no longer available. It is changed to a different package. So I'm going to delete this and see this is moved into a different packaging structure. So not only the auto configure module split, there are some package reshuffling as well. So we need to take care of that as well. Now if I try to build it again, here is another thing, like we have this auto configure MVC. Earlier it was in a different package. I am deleting that. Now I'm going to import it again. Now you can see it is imported but in a different module. So here is one thing you should take care of, because this is coming from this dependency web MVC. So this is a web MVC test dependency. This is where it is coming from. If your ID is saying that this does not exist, that could be the reason. You need to find out. Okay, so same thing I think here again. Let's import this. Build again. So from the compilation point of view, there are no issues. But again, if you take a look at, let's close all of them and let's open our nodes. So these are the dependencies we have updated, that is done. Now let's take a look at the test containers changes. So here in my test Java code, there is this test containers configuration class, and here you can see a bunch of warnings because these are the older coordinates. It got changed. So earlier we have this PostgreSQL container, RabbitMQ container inside the containers package, but now with 2.x version, they move to the specific thing like PostgreSQL container. Similarly, RabbitMQ container, and you don't need this anymore. Okay, so cool. Now test container dependencies are also sorted out. Next, what else we have? Jackson 3 updates we need to do. Now, if you take a look at the config package we are using in this application, I am using RabbitMQ, and here there are a couple of things that we need to take care. Earlier, we were using object mapper from Jackson 2. Now it is no longer available. I mean, by default, Spring Boot 4 is using Jackson 3, and it provides, instead of object mapper, now you are supposed to use JSON mapper from this package. Okay, now if we let's make it JSON mapper. Okay, and also do the same. And also this is a deprecated class. Let's go and see what they are suggesting to use. So this is what they are suggesting to use. Let's go ahead and change this. It is AMQP. Okay, now all these issues are fixed. Let's remove this. Let's remove this as well. Okay, so we did the Jackson 3 update. So again, to recap, earlier we were configuring some Jackson related converters where we need to inject object mapper from Jackson 2. Now we need to use JSON mapper from Jackson 3, and also the package name also got changed. So you should take a look at this. So we have done this Jackson 3 updates as well. And in addition to all these, I was using HTMX. So earlier I'm using HTMX Springboot Timeleaf library version 4.0.1, which worked fine for 3.x, but for Springboot 4 we need a newer version. This is not compatible anymore. And if I go to the HTMX Springboot, and here you can see 5.0.0 RC1 is there. That is compatible with Springboot 4. So let's change that dependency as well. So here I'm going to change 5.0.0 -rc.1. If you don't change this, if you have still 4.0.1 or something, when you run the test, it will fail because it tries to find some classes that are there in Spring Boot 3 version, but not they might changed. So that's where it will fail. So I think we are done with all the changes now. Now let's try. Okay, so here I am using a spotless Maven plugin to format the code, and then I am running this clean verify to check whether everything is fine or not. It's going to run all the tests and then it will verify all that. So if you wonder how I get this nice output for my tests, usually you don't see this kind of output. You see this something like in npm, it will show all this. So there is a plugin. Okay, let's see. So here with Maven Surefire plugin, which runs a test, I configured this dependency Maven Surefire JUnit 5 tree reporter, and we can provide a bunch of configuration for this. And with this dependency, it will show the test results nicely like this. Okay. Here is one interesting thing I observed. Most of the tests succeeded, but one test got failed, product REST API test. So let's take a look at that, why it got failed. So here we have a few things. One is product REST controller. Here I'm using this Spring Modulith based test and testing with mock MVC tester, which is coming from Spring Boot itself. Okay, and then I have another class where I am using REST assured. So earlier in Spring Boot 3, it was working fine, but now these two tests got failed. So these two tests got failed. And then later, if you remember, I was saying it got removed the dependency management for REST assured. Not only they just removed because it is not compatible with Spring Boot 4. I didn't dig too much into it, but based on what I read on GitHub issues, REST assured kind of depends on Groovy, and Spring Boot 4 depends on some other version. There is some conflict. So REST assured has some conflicts with Spring Boot 4. So that's why it is not working fine. But I just included these tests to demonstrate if you are building a REST API and using REST assured, you need to take this into account. I couldn't find a solution for this as of now, but one suggestion I would give, maybe if you want to use the same tools provided by Spring Boot itself, you can use mock MVC tester. And also for testing REST APIs, there is a test REST client, or if you are using Webflux, there is a web client test. So things like that. You might not need another dependency like REST assured. But if you already have an existing application where a bunch of tests are written using REST assured, I don't have a solution, but there is this issue with Spring Boot 4 that you need to take into account. Okay, so I think we have covered all these things that I want to talk about. Basically, for most of the applications, this is a good enough start to migrate to the Spring Boot 4. If you face any other issues, please let me know in the comments so that maybe I can try to do another video covering how to do those things. So I hope this video is helpful. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.